The courtroom was silent, tension filling the air. A wealthy man on trial sat smugly, certain he would walk free. Then, a tiny girl raised her hand and gave a quiet signal to her German shepherd. What happened next shocked the judge, stunned the jury, and changed everything. The heavy wooden doors creaked shut, and silence fell over the courtroom. Every seat was filled. Spectators leaned forward, eager to witness the outcome of a trial that had gripped the entire town, at the front. The judge sat high above, his expression stern and unyielding. He tapped his gavel once, commanding attention without a word. On the defendant's bench, a wealthy man leaned back with smug confidence, his suit immaculate, his smirk daring anyone to challenge him. To him, this was just another game he had already won. But at the side of the room sat someone who didn't belong to this world of lawyers and legal battles, a little girl. Her hands trembled as she clutched the leash of a German shepherd resting by her feet. The dog's ears were alert, his eyes never leaving the man across the room. Together, they sat quietly, waiting. None of the onlookers could guess how their presence would soon turn this trial upside down. The lawyers wasted no time. One rose sharply from his chair, his voice cutting through the silence as he presented his case. Charts, documents, and photographs were displayed, but the evidence seemed thin, easily dismissed. Across the room, the accused man leaned back, his smirk widening with each passing word. To the jury, it felt like the trial was slipping in the defendant's favor. A few jurors exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that justice might already be out of reach. The wealthy man's confidence filled the room like smoke, suffocating and smug. In the midst of it all, the little girl sat quietly, her small hands gripping the leather leash with determination. The German shepherd at her side didn't move, but his presence radiated strength. His sharp gaze never wavered from the man on trial, watching him with a focus that unsettled even the most composed spectators. No one knew why she was there, or what role the dog would play. But soon, both would prove that appearances could be deceiving. To the courtroom, the girl looked fragile, small shoulders, trembling hands, wide eyes filled with fear. But beside her sat a guardian unlike any other. The German shepherd pressed close to her leg, his steady presence giving her the courage she couldn't find alone. Their bond had been forged long before this trial. After tragedy struck her family, the dog had become her protector, trained not only to obey commands but to sense her emotions, her fear, and even danger. When nightmares kept her awake, he lay by her bed. When fear silenced her voice, he stood tall in her place. Few understood the depth of their connection. To outsiders, he was simply a dog. But to the little girl, he was strength, comfort, and safety wrapped in fur and loyalty. Every glance she gave him, every subtle touch of her hand, carried meaning only they shared. In the quiet corner of that courtroom, they weren't just child and pet. They were a team, and soon, their unspoken bond would shake the entire room. As the trial pressed on, the accused man grew more confident. Each time the defense dismantled another piece of evidence, his smirk widened. But across the room, the German shepherd's gaze never shifted. His amber eyes locked onto the man with a focus that was impossible to ignore. Whispers spread among the spectators. Some noticed the dog's intensity, the way his ears twitched each time the accused spoke. A few jurors shifted in their seats, unsettled by the quiet tension radiating from the animal. It was as if the shepherd could see something no human eye could catch. The man on trial began to fidget under that relentless stare. He cleared his throat, tugged at his collar, and avoided looking toward the dog. For the first time, his arrogance faltered. The girl leaned forward slightly, her hand brushing over the dog's head, steadying him, and herself. No one understood it yet, but something unspoken was building. The truth hung in the air like a storm waiting to break, and everyone could feel the shift. The tension in the room grew unbearable. Lawyers spoke, witnesses testified, but all eyes kept drifting toward the little girl and her dog. The German shepherd's stare never wavered, and his muscles tensed as though waiting for something unseen. The girl bit her lip, her hand trembling on the leash. Then, in a moment so small most missed it, she raised her fingers in a subtle gesture. It was a signal only her dog would understand, one they had practiced countless times in silence. The shepherd's ears shot forward, His body stiffened, and suddenly a low growl rumbled from deep within his chest. Gasps erupted across the courtroom. The growl grew louder, sharper, until the dog stood, barking fiercely, his gaze locked on the accused. The man's face drained of color, his composure shattering under the weight of those barks that felt more like accusations than noise. The judge slammed his gavel, demanding order, but even he couldn't hide his shock. In that instant, the courtroom shifted, the focus no longer on the lawyers, but on a girl, her dog, and the truth clawing its way to light. The judge's gavel pounded against the bench, but the echoes of the shepherd's barking were louder, sharper, impossible to ignore. Order struggled to return, yet every eye was fixed on the dog, whose growls pierced through the accused man's confidence like a blade. The judge leaned forward, his voice stern. "Young lady, explain yourself. Why did your dog react this way?" All eyes turned to the girl. Her hands shook, but she drew in a deep breath, her gaze never leaving the defendant. "My father taught him," she said softly, her voice trembling yet strong. "He knows when someone is lying. He knows when someone is dangerous. That man, he's the reason we're here. My dog recognizes him." The room fell into stunned silence. Jurors exchanged wide-eyed glances, the murmurs swelling like a rising tide. The defendant shifted nervously in his seat, sweat beading at his temple. The shepherd barked once more, a final, resounding declaration. And in that moment, no one doubted it. The little girl's loyal companion had pointed to the truth that words and evidence had failed to reveal. The judge sat back in his chair, his gavel resting heavily in his hand. The room had fallen into a silence so deep it felt fragile, as though a single breath might shatter it. All eyes were fixed on him, waiting till he studied the little girl, her trembling frame, and the German shepherd seated firmly by her side. Then his gaze shifted to the defendant. The man who had entered the courtroom, so smug, now sat hunched, his face pale, his confidence drained away. The contrast was undeniable. Witnesses who had once been hesitant began whispering to one another. One finally stood, emboldened by the dog's outburst, and spoke up, confirming suspicions long buried. Another followed, their courage spreading like wildfire. Piece by piece, the silence broke, not in chaos, but in clarity. The judge raised his gavel, his voice steady yet sharp. "This court cannot ignore what has been revealed here today." His words carried weight far beyond the wooden walls, signaling a shift that no one had seen coming. The defendant's smirk was gone. His hands trembled as officers stepped forward, their cuffs clinking in the quiet room. The jury watched with stunned faces, realizing that justice, once thought impossible, was unfolding before their eyes. The bench. The judge's voice softened as he turned to the little girl. "You were brave," he said firmly. "And your dog." He reminded us all that truth has a way of finding its voice. The German shepherd sat proudly, his ears alert, his gaze steady, as if he understood the honor bestowed upon him. As the accused was led away, the spectators rose to their feet, not in chaos, but in respect. What had begun as a trial destined for failure ended as a testament to loyalty, courage, and the power of trust between a child and her companion. Long after the courtroom emptied, people would remember that moment. Not the gavel, not the arguments, but a little girl's signal and a dog's unwavering truth. Together, they proved that sometimes justice comes on four legs, with eyes that never lie.